Hi! What you're about to see are excerpts from the press conference that was held at the Mill on June 15th. That press conference focused around messages on Alpha, OSF, MIPS, and Ultrix. This tape is only sections of that, and the full 53-minute video is available through the AV catalog, order number 5334. After the excerpts from the press conference, you'll see brief statements from David Stone, Matt Cochin, and Don Gaubatz. The last piece of the tape will be a competitive statement from Frank Kettenstock, also known as Dr. Frank. Thanks.
Basically, the reason we're having this discussion with you is that a couple of months ago, we had done some work on what we should be doing with our Unix and OSF1 investments in particular. And we came to the conclusion that we should focus on the Alpha platform for that. And we talked to a lot of people about that. And at the time, we said, and I said specifically, that we had made this decision, but that we needed to make sure that we listened to our customers to find out whether they thought that was a great idea. Having spent the last couple of months listening to hundreds of customers and our own people in the field and so on, we've concluded that there is such a demand for the OSF1 technology, specifically on the MIPS platform, that we are going to support that path as well. Let me show you a picture that explains what happened and why we have made this decision. That's not the word, sorry. Basically, where you are on this picture today is you're either here at the Ultrix R3000 platform, or you might be here if you're one of the set of ISVs who has been working to port their applications to OSF1 on the R3000 preparatory to moving on to other platforms. We discovered that there are basically three paths that people wanted to pursue. Path number one was the Ultrix R3000 platform moving to the Ultrix R4000 platform, which is a shift of chip underneath but not of operating system, and then eventually coming downward to the OSF1 operating system, either on the R4000 or moving directly to an Alpha position. So one path could be Ultrix R3000, Ultrix R4000, OSF1 R4000, OSF1 Alpha. And one of the things that we learned was that people, a lot of people, not all, were very interested, who had this installed base, were interested in moving one thing at a time, either one operating system change or one chip change, but not both. Another path that people might take is to go from Ultrix on the R3000 directly to an Alpha OSF1 platform. That's a two-shift. And typically that would not be people who had an existing set of applications, but rather people who were developing new applications which they plan to deploy first on an Alpha platform. Another choice basically would be to go from Ultrix R3000 to OSF1 R3000, again a single shift, in this case the operating system but not the chip, and then move forward from there to either OSF1 on the 4000 or OSF1 on Alpha. So basically, because those multiple migration paths exist, we concluded after talking to our customers that that's what we needed to produce, was the operating system and platforms necessary for all those three paths to continue to be usable. And that's what we've done. So that's the simple statement of what we decided. I have a significant number of other details, but as does Charlie, but we concluded that since that's probably the primary thing you wanted to talk about, we'd tell you that and then let you ask questions and let you guide us as to which of the other details you'd like to know about. Okay, so the question is, what has the recent Silicon Graphics investment in MIPS or acquisition of MIPS done to our investment or our plans in this area? Well, from a technical perspective, the fact that someone else owns the company doesn't change its technology a whole lot. So there's no particular change to our evaluation of what the architecture is good for or what the chip is good for. In the context of the ACE consortium, the new owner provides an opportunity for people to ask questions and what are the new directions going to be, but nothing has specifically changed as far as I know. So in actual fact, we're a member of the board of ACE. We haven't changed anything. I mean, it would give you an opportunity to wonder, perhaps, but we have not changed anything with regard to that. might be worth saying from a software person's perspective that the goal of the ACE group was to provide a stable software platform for people to write applications to across a set of hardware delivered by multiple vendors. And in particular, those two interfaces that were discussed were a Windows environment and an OSF1 environment. And that hasn't changed, nor has it changed for us. And in fact, if you look at our Alpha platform, we've put both of those interfaces on top. So on the software side, there's been very little change at all. Okay, this question is about the fact that Unix Software Labs is making an announcement on the West Coast tomorrow, and they will be announcing their so-called Destiny product, or Unix System 5 Release 4.2. And the question related to our presence there and how we felt about that. Basically, Unix System 5 4.2 is another Unix implementation, and we have three different things to say about it. Number one thing is that it's particularly nice that we will see an endorsement by USL of the Open Software Foundation layered products and interfaces. So this is, of course, before the fact, but I'm telling you what I understand is going to happen, that there will be an endorsement by Roel Pieper of various of the OSF layered technologies and interfaces. And I think for the Unix industry as a whole, this is an excellent thing. By and large, OSF's open procurement of technology process has been endorsed by most everybody, and I think that's good. So we strongly endorse that. The second thing is that we will announce that our network application support packages, which we announced last October with a rollout plan for multiple platforms, both digital and other, will in fact be made available on top of the USL operating system, just as we've announced we will make it available on top of HP's UX and IBM's AIX. So that's simply a continuation of a previous strategy which we have announced. And that's for the purpose of providing a consistent applications environment for people who have already decided that NAS is an appropriate way for them to port themselves to different platforms. And thirdly, there will be a statement that from a technology perspective, both USL and digital are prepared to help anyone who felt like porting the USL product to the Alpha platform. Just as we have said, Alpha being an open chip, we'll help anybody who wants to port things to it, or for that matter, who wants to buy the chip or the board or the process. So those are the three things that we will say tomorrow. That does not say that we are shipping their operating system. We have no plans to do that. But it is another operating system in the Unix space. It has a significant share, and it would be very logical for us to put our layered products on top of it in the same way that we do with HP and IBM.
Could you put some scale on the timeline on that chart?
Okay, the little red line is today, right?
Sure.
And our intention is to complete this set of migration paths by the end of calendar 93. And you see these things roughly in order, proportionally from a graphic perspective.
The response to the question, what are we going to do for MIPS-based follow-ons, is that we will continue to use the R4000 daughter card technology, which started with the R3000s, of course, because we have found that it's a very effective way to keep the base platform in place, which includes all of the built-in and embedded I/O, all of the turbo channel options, the power supply, and everything outside the box, and to allow the user who's made that investment in the base platform to just move right up the microprocessor technology curve. Now, from what we understand about the farther off planned MIPS microprocessors, it looks to us like we would be able to continue, even if necessary, beyond the R4000 technology and still use the same, approach to daughter cards. We deal with the MIPS semiconductor vendors every day. To relate to an earlier question, I see no difficulties whatsoever in accessing MIPS microprocessor technology, so that'll be the plan for the future. No, we plan to use whatever microprocessor technology is available from the MIPS semiconductor vendors. And I didn't mean to put any qualifiers on that at all. In fact, in the handout that you just have are the details about the 33 megahertz R3000 card. And the logistics will be a little difficult. Let me just hold up here. Mr. Cochin's going to hold my microphone. We want to give you some evidence that the daughter card technology is alive and well at Central Engineering. And here we have the first public site of the R4000 daughter card. Now this is in true engineering form, an engineering sample. You can see the wires sticking out. That's the R4000 at the bottom with a big heat sink on it. The other chip at the top is a software programmable piece of hardware, and there's a few wires coming off of it. If you could hold the mic again, Matt. I have in my pocket, people accuse me of always having something like this in my pocket. I don't know why. I have in my pocket the application-specific integrated circuit, the ASIC, which will replace this circuitry right here. So what you see is, in addition to the flexibility of the daughter card, the interface ASIC, you see this long list of cache RAM on here. And I'm going to show you give you a peek at the other side as we move forward with higher performance processors which can use more faster cache. We can actually put cache on the backside. So this is a very flexible platform which allows us to go forward. R4000, R5000, in response to the demand and the application of the technology.
Well, in actual fact, the question is about what is the delivery date for the OSF1 software and whether that was impacted by the decision that we took earlier and that revisited here. Well, the actual delivery date that we had been planning for the OSF1 next version, you can see version 1.0 there, and the 1.2 version, that had always been at the end of this calendar year, not earlier than that. And what we did when we took the alpha focus decision was we said, let's make that first release be on the alpha chip. And that is the current plan, as you can see. And the plan is then to move that same system onto the R3000 platform. So the change is not that the delivery of the technology itself changed, but rather that the platform we focused it on was changed. And then we will take that first on the alpha and then move it to the R3000. So there's no underlying technology problem related to the software alone. It was just a retargeting decision. Okay, let me go with the first question first. The first question was more or less, why did we decide initially to target OSF1 for alpha directly? And the answer to that is that when we did the analysis, we were looking at people who were doing applications and talking about the requirement for very high performance, which we observed would be better met in the alpha environment than in the MIPS environment. What in hindsight we can say we did not do correctly was to evaluate the number of people who were happily running their applications on the R3000 platform with Ultrix and who were happy to continue running it with Ultrix on the R4000, and in addition were interested in having OSF1 in production on the MIPS platforms. So we misevaluated the requirement for the high performance end. I said we thought that was the primary requirement, and looking back at it, that was not the real case. Okay, so basically there's two parts to this question as I hear it. One is, if you are developing an application, how hard will it be for you to get from one place to another place, whether it be Ultrix on the R3000 to OSF1 on the alpha or the various passes? By and large, it's extremely simple, especially if you have written your application in what one could call a modern way. Basically, by and large, going from the Ultrix R3000 to R4000 platform is very simple. It's mostly just binary compatible. There are a few cases where it might not be. If you're moving from the Ultrix or OSF1 environment on the MIPS platform to the alpha platform, in principle, you are able to recompile, relink, and run. So it is not a complex problem for us, and the hardware abstraction layer concept is something which people use it in different ways. The thing that's convenient for us in the alpha environment is that we are capable of programming through the PAL layer on that chip to adapt to different operating systems, which is what makes it a simpler exercise. It's not entirely the same concept as what various other people call the hardware abstraction layer, but it serves basically the same purpose. So it is not difficult to move from any of those places to any of the other places, which was one of the reasons we thought that people would be interested in going directly to the alpha environment. Turned out that they were interested in staying with the MIPS environment. So the question is, will the OSF1 that we put on the R4000 be a 64-bit operating system? You should be alert to the fact that both Alpha and the R4000, as a piece of background here, are 64-bit. And when you look at things, you will discover that people will use 64-bit or 32-bit, or in some cases even 16-bit environments on those chips. For example, when a Windows 3.1 application is running under NT on Alpha, it's actually executing in what it perceives as a 16-bit environment, surrounded by what NT creates as a 32-bit environment running on a 64-bit chip. So you have all these choices. The R4000 here is running the same code pool as this one here. So I need to look at my friend Glenn Johnson if he's around in the room someplace.
Our initial plans are to port to the R4000 in 32-bit to take advantage of the application compatibility. We could look at later when to do 64 bits.
Right. So one of the differentiators between the alpha environment and the R4000 environment in this strategy would be that since the R4000 is moving basically an installed base that's going R3000, R4000 applications, it makes a lot of sense, as Glenn says, to keep compatibility between those as strictly as possible. The new applications which are going out on alpha are being written specifically for that environment typically, or modified for that environment. It makes sense to take advantage of the full 64-bit environment. So you'll see a 64-bit OSF1 implementation on alpha and a 32-bit continuation of the Ultrix, of the MIPS line. Okay, so this question is about the internal debate that might be going on about the alpha platform versus the MIPS platform and our commitment to one and the other. Perhaps it's worthwhile pointing out that we still ship PDP-11s. And that's 20 years now. So it's clear that we have been supporting customers on platforms that they have bought for long, long periods of time after a number of people have moved to new platforms. So that there's no debate whatsoever about not supporting MIPS. The question really is about at what point, what percentage of people will want to be on which platform. Don, did you want to add to that?
Maybe I can just add a few comments to that. I do a lot of customer contact, and the response that I get is a response to both platforms. They know we're aggressively upgrading the MIPS install base, the MIPS platforms, with higher frequency R3000 daughter cards, as you have in your press release, with the R4000 daughter cards, which you just saw. And the customers are going to invest again yet more in their MIPS product lines, but they're tremendously curious also, as you would expect, about the alpha product line. So once we call on the customer, get the information out there, they tend to relax a little bit because they know there's a commitment on both sides, and they know they will be able to move to alpha when it's convenient for them and when the right product shows up at the right time at the right price. So we're actually dealing with a high curiosity factor right now. And most of my customers, if not all of my customers, are going to buy alpha products as soon as possible while they are still investing in the MIPS product line. There's tremendous commonality between the product lines. Both product lines utilize the turbo channel at 50, if not 100 megabytes per second, which is the fastest I/O bus on the desktop and in that part of the market. In addition, above the bus, all the graphics cards are going to be shared between the things, as well as communication cards, as well as disk storage cards. And well above that level, the graphical APIs, the graphical applications programming interfaces of FIGS, GKS, PEX, PEX Lib, and recently announced, well, not quite so recently, last September, with Silicon Graphics in California, GL 5.0 is going to be supported on the platforms. So once they hear the whole story, everybody tends to relax and move ahead.
I was just going to comment on your other question about were we surprised, et cetera. I think what we learned from this exercise is that we have to do a much better job in terms of planning the migration of technologies and giving much more weight perhaps than we have in the past to where the customers are, where their investments have been, and what they see as technology adequate for their needs in the foreseeable future. And as a result of this, I think we've kind of gone back and looked at a lot of transitions that we'll be going through and rethinking what is the best way to manage our way through them, giving weight to these various the various needs of the customer base as well as where we're moving in a technology sense.
Because the question is about the further clarification of our support, or how we're going to deal with the USL product, Unix System 5 4.2 or Destiny. We have no intention of shipping that product ourselves on any platform. First point. Second point, what we are doing with them is we are putting our NAS layer of services on top of that operating system, just as we're doing it on top of other versions of Unix, which is of course easier because people are conforming more and more to the specifications from OSF. So that's not such a big deal insofar as they conform to the same specification. So if someone wanted to buy such a thing, that operating system on one of our platforms, they would have to find someone else who was going to port it and put it on the platform. I mean, that's the same is true of a number of operating systems that we don't ship that people like. So we have no intention of supporting that. Our support for OSF 1 continues steadfast, and we have no intention of supporting that particular operating system ourselves, although if someone else wants us to support it on Alpha, that's fine.
Alpha is very unique in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways is that it's been designed from the beginning to be operating system neutral. So, it's already going to run VMS, it's going to run NT, OSF. It's not unlikely that you will see other operating systems in the future on the platform. And the first one that showed some interest is USL.
In the case of NT, we specifically are going to be shipping NT ourselves, and therefore we are doing that jointly with Microsoft.
So wouldn't the Alpha product guys like to have System 5 on Alpha supported by DEC?
Could well be. I'd like to have double my paycheck too, if that was okay. Turns out there's certain things that you might like. Our strategy is very clear. On Alpha, we are shipping 3 operating systems: VMS, OSF1, and NT. Well, to answer the second question first, which is why are we bothering to port OSF to the MIPS platform, the answer is very simple, because a large number of our customers asked us to do so, and we decided to honor their wishes. It seemed like a sensible thing to do. The first part of the question had to do with the fact that it is alleged that some people will announce a port of USL System 5 4.2 to big endian MIPS platforms, and I'm not aware of that, but it could well be true. Perfectly logical. The question further was then, what would it take to put NAS on a big endian platform? Not to descend too far into the technical, big endian and little endian are no big deal, provided that the environment that you're in happens to be all one or the other. Nobody can tell the difference. What becomes interesting is when you have an environment which is half and half, or one part is, quote, big endian, one little. In such a case, it doesn't matter either, because the software automatically can, between systems, recognize which is which and switch it for you if you want. So there is no problem from a technical perspective at all. If you are constantly switching back and forth, you have a translation penalty that you might pay. But as long as you're isolating your data and your computation to mainly being local to the same size, same end, it really doesn't matter at all. So there's no technical difficulty in doing it. It's just a question of the number of times you have to do it. If you were doing it on every transfer of data from the disk, that would be kind of silly. There's a lot more detailed technical depth to that, but at a simple level, that's what it is. So the question has to do with OSF1 in the context of the ACE Alliance, and further the question of what systems SCO is supporting. I'm not aware of what SCO's public position is on which operating system they're supporting at the moment. But at one point, they were going to deliver their product on the MIPS platform. And I believe at this point, they have said that they are not planning to deliver their product on the MIPS platform. That's independent of whether it's going to be based on OSF1 or whatever. So as far as I know, they've made no pronouncement on the operating system, only on the hardware platform. In terms of the ACE Alliance, there are various vendors there, and I say from the software perspective, the desirability of having an OSF1 conformant set of system interfaces remains constant, as does the Windows set. So you really want to have those two layers. Each hardware vendor will make his own decision as to how he gets the technology that implements that layer of interfaces. And I don't honestly know what each of their decision is. I do know that we are producing the OSF1 system, and that we would be more than happy to help somebody who wanted to use our version on their system if that was what they like to do. Okay, so this question has to do with the different migration paths and what percentages of the people that we've observed and talked to were in which of those particular paths. You'll remember that you basically have the Ultrix to Ultrix on the R4000, eventually going to OSF, perhaps on the R4000, and then eventually directly to Alpha. You have the path of the current OSF1 on the R3000 or Ultrix on the R3000 going directly to Alpha OSF. And then you have the path which slides you down to OSF1 on the R3000 and then moves across. These people typically have different characteristics, as you suggest. The people going directly to the Alpha platform are typically talking about new applications which are dependent on high performance and perhaps are specifically interested in large address spaces. The classes of things that do that would be characterized as workstation type applications these days, modeling, financial modeling, simulations of things that require very large address spaces or a lot of computing power. So you typically would be looking at people who are going to take advantage of the new computing environment to write applications that specifically needed it. The people who are looking at the Ultrix line sliding MIPS technology in underneath it are the people who have existing commercially viable applications perfectly good for what they want, and they see adding more power with the minimum hassle as the important thing to do. And the people who want to move directly to an OSF1 platform on top of MIPS architecture are people typically who are policy-oriented and are interested in making sure that they conform to certain open interfaces and have technology that comes from a specific sort of open place. So those are the three different characteristics. In terms of percentages, I don't really have a good feel for the percentages, but they're a significant number of each. And so I don't know whether it's a third each or 40, 40, 20 or whatever, but a fairly significant balance of people in those different categories. Let's see, you had another question at the end there. I categorized it under when did I stop beating my wife, so it must have been something I didn't like.
Should Alpha run into problems?
Ah, yes, I got it.
Is this the strategy that you would use?
So the question is, if Alpha were to run into problems, which of course it isn't, would this strategy be something I would do then? And the answer is, it would depend on what kind of problems it ran into. I really would not expect it to run into problems based on what I know, but yeah, if you're going to delay something, you probably want to ship something else. Would be the logic of it, but it isn't clear how different that would be. This strategy is specifically related to migration paths rather than substitutions. We continue to believe that the segment of the people who want to take the OSF1 to Alpha route direct, which is typically people taking the new applications view, will continue to do that. So I really don't have any particular comment on whether this would be a way of doing something which we're not currently concerned with. Hi. I'd like to give you a little synopsis of what actually happened when we talked to the press and the analysts about our current Unix strategy. There's been a lot of debate, and we've done a lot of talking to customers and to you about what we should do. And I want to give you the summary of what that decision was in a format that should help you with your customers. First of all, it's very important to recognize, as you can see here, that our strategy has been and remains to aim in the future at OSF1 as our technology base for Unix. That is to say, the majority of the new operating system kernel features that you can expect to see from us are coming from the use of that technology. So whether you're based on Ultrix today, or System 5 today, or based on OSF today, you can expect to move towards OSF1 technologies on all the platforms that we're supporting. So, in particular, what did we tell the press? We told them that we had made a decision some months back to focus on OSF1 on Alpha as the primary delivery point for that technology. We had concluded that doing that would satisfy the majority of our customers, and that we could therefore skip the step of putting OSF1 on the MIPS platforms except for the advanced development kit we delivered in March. That turned out, based on information from you and from the customers, to be a wrong decision. So here's what we decided to do. This is called the Unix game. You are here. Where you want to get to eventually is here. How do you get there is the question. We had initially concluded that the quickest and simplest path would be to go thusly, namely to move from the Ultrix R3000 implementation directly downward to OSF1 on Alpha, and then move forward as that functionality improved. And indeed, there are people who want to do that. However, there's a significant number of people who would like some other migration paths. For example, a number of people said, I'm working on Ultrix today. What I want is to be able to move to Ultrix on the R4000, get some more power under the platform, no big changes to my applications, just slip in some more power. And then eventually, I'll move down at the appropriate time when the layered product functionality is right to OSF1, but on the R4000 also, making a single transition of operating system and keeping the hardware technology the same. Then eventually, when the technology is right on Alpha, I'll move to that. We'd anticipate this happening over a period of time which went through the end of calendar 93. So that was another path, and there were a lot of people in this install base who felt that that was important. But that wasn't enough. There were some other people who wanted to go yet another path. They said, I'm a policy-oriented person. I want OSF1 technology for its openness and its new modern functionality. So they said, I want to go directly without change of chip from the R3000 Ultrix to the R3000 OSF1 implementation, and thence eventually to OSF1 and Alpha. The summary of what we concluded to do, based on all of the inputs that you helped us collect, is to support all of these different migration paths. This requires us to support Ultrix on the R3000 and then the R4000, Ultrix on the R3000 moving to OSF1 on the R3000 and R4000, and then finally, as originally declared, OSF1 on Alpha moving through. The important date to remember is the end of calendar 93, at which point we believe all the layered functionality and the operating system kernel capabilities will be there to allow everyone who wants to use the Alpha technology to use it. Meantime, we'll continue to support the OSF1 stream of technology on MIPS through that same level of functionality. And you can notice that there are timings here. We're putting things on OSF1 first, and then after OSF1 on Alpha, you'll see OSF1 on the R3000, and you'll see that kind of timing. So the OSF1 technology is on Alpha first, then on MIPS, and that proceeds along in the different releases. So that's what we told them. The official picture I gave them, to show you the slightly cleaned up one, is that. So this is the picture that the press people have, and it doesn't have the same exact dates, but I did tell them that we expected to accomplish all this roughly by the end of next calendar year. So that's what we told them. I think for your customers, the key message is we made a decision. We recognized at that time that we hadn't necessarily had enough feedback from customers. We went and asked We got told without being asked in some cases. And we listened and we changed our mind because that was the right thing to do. We are delivering them OSF1. We're delivering them any path along this chart that they want to take because we don't want to disturb their ability to get their work done. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Matt Cochin. You've just seen parts of the press and consultant briefing that we just had in Maynard, Massachusetts, as well as Mountain View, California. And you've heard David Stone talk about our migration strategy for Unix. And I'm here to tell you just a couple of things to tell our customers. The first message I have, though, is for you. And that is, we really work for a great company. We work for a company that listens to you and listens to our customers. We may be criticized for not listening to enough of you and enough of customers a few weeks ago. But when all of you voiced your opinions of yourself and your customer base, the company really listened, and they did what I think is the right thing for the customers. Now, if I was writing for Computer World or Open Systems Today or any of the publications, the headline I would use is "Customers Win." But you may not see that headline. What you may see is other headlines like "Digital Changes Mind" or whatever else. And the reason is a lot of these people cannot eat their words. They've already written a story, and to go back on what they've already said, it's very difficult for them to do that. But what they will do, I believe, is portray this is Digital's Unix strategy. And I want you to use those "This is Digital's Unix strategy" messages David Stone presented in some of the publications, the more positive ones, and go to your customers and tell them in the best way you can that we have listened to you, you have voiced your opinion, your concerns, and we did something about it. And that Digital is very committed to OSF1 as our Unix strategy, and we're also very committed to the MIPS product line. We have done this in order to satisfy the needs that our customers have. It's as simple as that. So I'd like to have you take as much information that you've seen on this tape, and if you need any other help at all in helping convince your customer that we're doing the right thing for them, any help whatsoever, please call us at the basement tape number, and we'll get to you whatever you need. For example, we've already gotten calls that some of you need the actual Charlie Crist letter that went out to all of you on Digital logo signed by Charlie. If you need that, we'll send that to you. We're here to help you sell, and now the ball's in your court, so go out and sell the best you can.
In the previous parts of these presentations, you heard David Stone and Matt Cochin talk about the strategy. Now I want to talk about the strategy from a slightly different perspective, namely the hardware platforms and the R4000 upgrades that we're going to use to support this hardware and software strategy. If I can refer to the migration roadmap, I have my pointer indicating Ultrix version 4.3a, and this is when Ultrix will show up supporting the R4000 daughter cards. Now just to take the opportunity to give you a peek into central engineering, here is the first public viewing of the R4000 daughter card. You can see there's a few wires hanging out as we're doing our debugging. We have the R4000 chip here hiding under the fairly massive heat sink, and we have the ASIC right here, the application-specific integrated circuit, which maps or mates the R4000 processor to the onboard environment via these connectors. And you can already see a long line of cache chips here down on the bottom of the R4000 daughter card. Again, in the context of the R4000 chip, we can use daughter card technology to upgrade the platforms through multiple versions of microprocessor megahertz. In fact, if we go faster, we can even put cache on the back side. So the upgrade strategy, the daughter card strategy, is still in place and will be promoted to move the customers up through the R4000 microprocessors, just as we've so effectively moved them up through the R3000 microprocessors. In the kit that was given out today to the press and the analysts, it contained the details on the R3000 33 megahertz cards, which upgrade Maxine, the personal DECstation 5000 Model 33, and 3Min, this version being the DECstation 5000 Model 133. Now, in addition to the upgrade story, which is very, very good and will be rolling out soon, you can also talk to your customers about the very high degree of stability in the platform investment. Specifically, I mean by this that the entire I/O environment, the turbo channel interconnect, will be carrying forward to the Alpha-based platforms. In fact, the Alpha-based workstations, Flamingo, Sandpiper, and Pelican, about which I'm sure you've heard, will have more turbo channel slots per platform on average than the MIPS-based family that precedes it. The basic message here is that you can encourage, with absolute confidence, your customers to invest in a turbo channel platform. You can form relationships between your customers and the third-party IHVs, that's independent hardware vendors, to provide solutions for I/O interconnect that are not available immediately from digital. These include an alternative VME interconnect solution, for example, from 3 external vendors, token ring cards from external vendors, and any number of 52 cards which are now shipping immediately as of this taping from digital and from the external vendors. I encourage you to call the Triad program. Again, the phone number is 1-800-678-OPEN. The Triad program will give you, either electronically that you can pull off a machine or in hard copy, the Triad shippable products catalog, which I guarantee you will give you everything you need to plug in those turbo channel slots to close the order and make a full solution. In addition to the Triad shippable products catalog, you should get a copy of Connecting, the most recent version, and what it shows in the center spread is the complete outline of all the real-time products which are supported now on the DEC station and DEC platforms, and which will be supported given that the OSF decision has been made, and OSF will be supported on the R3000 and R4000s. This, ladies and gentlemen, is essentially the greenest of all possible lights to move ahead and push those platforms into real-time applications and all those other applications for which no other vendor can provide a full solution. This present message, this reduction of all ambiguity with respect to OSF on these platforms, and with all the continuity for the platforms, the turbo channel options, the option cards, graphics cards, storage cards, I/O cards, in addition to the fact that the entire I/O structure carries forward to the Alpha base, is the best possible message to take forward to the customers right now. I will be supporting you in this effort. I call on customers on a weekly basis. Send your problems to me, and we'll find a way to solve them. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Frank Kettenstock, and I work for Unix Software Marketing. Today we'll try to clarify some confusing things about digital and the Unix industry, and to come up with some compelling reasons why customers should do business with digital. You saw segments of our announcement for support for DEC OSF1 continuing on the MIPS systems line. This strategy means that both our installed base and our new customers will be able to buy from digital today and be assured that their investments will be protected in the future. This enables them to choose if, when, and how they want to migrate to future technologies from digital. Ultrix will continue to be supported as long as there are customers using it. This support will be mostly maintenance type support. When customers are ready and when their applications are available, they can migrate to DEC OSF1 on either the MIPS or the Alpha-based systems. If they choose to stay with the MIPS line, they will also be able to take advantage of the R4000 upgrade cards for increased performance. If they choose to move to Alpha, customers can take advantage of the hardware upgrade offerings to protect their investment. To make the migration to DEC OSF1 even easier, Digital has built-in Ultrix compatibility into DEC OSF1. In fact, many applications run in binary form. However, we recommend recompilation and relinking to take advantage of some of the added value features in DEC OSF1, like shared libraries, for instance. For many applications, a recompile and relink is all that is needed. A Ultrix to DEC OSF1 migration guide is available, which goes over the differences between Ultrix and DEC OSF1, how to port programs and shell scripts, and any differences in system and network management. This is available today for your customers. There are also worldwide alpha migration centers available to help customers even further. Migration tools are being developed by Digital today and will be available shortly to help in application migrations. In summary, Digital is making sure customers' investments today are protected and that it is easy migration in the future can be done when the customer is ready. There has been a lot of confusion lately about the relationships between USL, UI, and OSF. USL, or Unix Systems Labs, is the engineering and marketing subsidiary spun off by AT&T to develop Unix System 5 and other related products, like Tuxedo. UI, or Unix International, is the body of hardware vendors, software developers, and some end users who develops the requirements for the products that USL ships. OSF, or Open Software Foundation, is an independent corporation put in place by its members to develop open system standards, such as Motif, OSF1, DCE, and DME technologies. Lately in the press, a misconception has been spread about the OSF's commitment to the OSF1 operating system. The truth of the matter is that OSF and its supporters are still fully behind the continuing support and development of OSF1. In addition, the OSF and USL have started to work together to establish common application programming interfaces, or APIs, for their environment to make it easy and cost-effective for application developers to bring their applications into the Unix environment. Examples of this are that they both support the OSF Application Environment Specification, or AES, Motif, DCE, and the DME. They are doing this because both the OSF and USL realized that their main enemy was not each other, that it was Microsoft, and by working together, they can better promote Unix. Now that we are speaking of USL, they have just made an announcement of the latest operating system. It's called System 5 Release 4.2, or better known to some as Destiny or Unix Lite. What may be confusing to some is an announcement was made saying that System 5 Release 4.2 will be available on Alpha. Digital is fully committed to the development and marketing of OSF1 on Alpha. Digital is not working with USL or has no plan to develop or distribute System 5 on Alpha to our customers. Digital will, however, encourage any OEM who wants to port any operating system, including System 5, to the Alpha platform. To date, no OEM has expressed interest in the System 5 port. No one is working on a port, and there is no schedule. Digital will make NAS services available on System 5, just like we are supporting NAS services on platforms from other vendors. The NAS announcement is for support of System 5 on any hardware platform. There is no dependency on the Alpha hardware. Now, why did we choose to do OSF1 over System 5? Simple, because customers were asking for it. Customers want to take advantage of the OSF's superior technology and features, the prospect of the distributed computing environment, and of the distributed management environment, and of the more open and vendor-neutral process by which the Open Software Foundation found its technology. OSF1 is a modern kernel that was built with things like multiprocessing and threads from the beginning. These features didn't have to be stuck into the side of a 20-year-old operating system like System 5. OSF1 is also well on its way to becoming a pure microkernel, which will give customers tremendous advantages in the future. OSF's request for technology process for acquiring technology integrates the best of what the industry has to offer, ensuring leadership technology and features today and in the future. For an outside evaluation of Digital's OSF1 implementation, check out the Open Systems Today OST Labs evaluation of DEC OSF1. Reprints are available in Northborough. In addition to being the leading OSF1 provider in the industry, what are other reasons for doing business with Digital? I feel that there are three very important and compelling reasons for customers to buy from Digital today. The first is that Digital has the flexibility to offer the right open and standard solutions based on what the customer needs, not based on what a vendor has to sell. Let me explain what I mean by that. Different computer users have different needs, which calls for a variety of different operating environments on different platforms to best solve their needs. Digital will offer DEC OSF1 on MIPS, Alpha, and Intel, OpenVMS on VAXes and Alpha, Windows NT on Alpha and Intel, and DOS and Windows on DOS and on Intel. No other vendor can offer this breadth of open and standard-based systems. So offering choice is good, and Digital is offering the right choices. Let's contrast this with Sun Microsystems. Sun says choice is bad, since they only offer one choice. But even Sun is starting to see that one size doesn't always fit all. They used to say that all customer needs is Sun OS on Spark. Now that they are saying all customer needs is Sun OS on Spark or Intel. Therefore, since Digital offers these choices, we can better fit customer needs with the best solutions available. The second reason to go with Digital is that all these different types of users with different platforms have to work with each other. They need to share data, computes, applications, and other things. Many times, the different systems they have are from different vendors. With Digital's leadership in networking and NAS services, no one in the industry can make it all work together like Digital can. Compare this with IBM. They offer many choices, but when they try to integrate their proprietary and incompatible systems together under something called SAA, it has been a disaster. Even when one looks at the goals of SAA, it doesn't include third-party platforms, all of IBM's own platforms, or even too many open system technologies. As a result, Digital can tie together the enterprise in an open fashion better than anyone else. The third reason to buy from Digital is that customers need service and support for all these systems. They don't want to have to call 10 different service providers when something breaks and then watch them fight over whose problem it is. Digital provides the most comprehensive quality support for digital and third-party hardware and software. If one looks at Hewlett-Packard, they provide great service and support for their own products. But what about all those other products that a user has that comes from other vendors? Therefore, Digital is the only company that can provide service to the total enterprise. The best things about these advantages are that they are sustainable. They cannot be leapfrogged every few months like the MIP of the Month Club. You can be confident in selling these advantages today, knowing that they will still be there tomorrow. Now, we went over a lot of different things here today. I tried to clear up some confusion about Digital in the industry. I also tried to give some compelling reasons for DEC OSF1 and Digital. I hope this helped. Thank you.
I know what you just saw was an awful lot of information to absorb, so we're going to list some additional resources for you to obtain more information online. If you don't find what you're looking for there, please send us mail at the basement tapes at lescom://salestools. Thank you.